Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. Electrifying.
Yes, guys, welcome back to the instant reaction. Arsenal 2, Brentford 0 in the Premier League. What a weird game. Absolutely bizarre night at the Emirates in many ways. But a win's a win. A win is a win. So thank you for joining us on the Cannon Podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. We'll come to all your comments and your super chats as we say at the end. We've got headlines. We've got first half, second half. We'll come to stats. And as always, I'm joined by George v AFC. George, I'm going to start with my headline. I think it's just the Premier League. There was a time when sort of Premier League football meant something, I think, along the lines of sort of Rory Delap and Jermaine Defoe and 442. And I don't quite know, but maybe people don't know what I'm referring to, the sort of mid 2010s. That felt to me like the most Premier League game we've played so far. I think, if that makes any sense, I think it was intense. It was cagey at times. It was expansive at times. I was watching players and thinking, you're amazing. You are truly amazing. And you're at Brentford, like some of these players are on their team. The quality in this league, the ability of other teams to hurt you, the fact that we pulled through and we are now at 21 games with one loss. The injuries, the physical demands, there is no easy game in this league. Felt like the most Premier League game I've heard of in a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Throwback in a lot of ways, and some frustrations. And I sat there thinking to myself, I'm annoyed at things. And then I'm like, wait, who's on the pitch? I have to go back to the lineup. I've got to reevaluate. Then I'm sitting there thinking there's some really good things. Like in that first half, I actually argued there was some passage of play that could have been described as some of our most liquid football, if you want to call it, whilst also showing some of the worst transition, defending moments that we've seen. So it was just one of those really up and down. My headline wants to be pedantic and say that Arsenal have a negligent medical staff. But really, my headline is a little bit more squad depth. It's nice to see. Because really, my favorite players from this match were squad depth, in a sense. Madueke, Benjamin Blanco, I think both of them need their own sections in the analysis. But wow, what a way to look at the squad, who clearly were rotated. We have not been able to do this. And I insist that Saliba plays this match last year. Saliba is forced to play this match. And was it pretty? No. Are squad depth matches ever supposed to be pretty? No, they cannot be. Did the team walk out with a 2-0, something like probably 2.5 XG, extend their lead at the top of the table, and manage to do the business with another clean sheet? Yes, 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 yes. So it's nice to have real squad depth that gives us options to change things. And I found it amazing that at the exact 60-minute mark, I saw both wingers switch. It was just one of those where it's intentional, and I'm sitting there saying, wow, this squad is very good.
And finally you trust it, which I think has been a big question. Forgive me, by the way, for my voice. I'm still not very well, so apologies if I'm a little bit weak. It was a game of new narratives. It was a game of the players who we haven't seen in a while, sort of imposing themselves. And I think you're right in terms of the Saliba thing. I think also that can be extended to Saka. Mm-hmm. I think probably that can be extended to Mosquera. Like, I don't know what's wrong with him, and maybe I could come to eat my words here about Mosquera, and maybe he's out for 6 weeks, which would be classic. But it feels like a sort of situation where he's gone down feeling awkward. He said, I could, and we've gone, no. And Jurriën Timbers come on and played an unbelievable half at right centre back, which is again just pure Premier League. Declan Rice has come off. Probably could have. I don't know. I don't want to say anything that's definite, but it feels like he's sort of come off and said, "Look, I can play the last 10 minutes, but probably best not to." So you're right to sort of frame it in the sort of squad depth side of things. I think for me, it just shows the level of the Premier League. Like, Brentford asked us so many difficult questions. Even Igor Thiago coming on at the end for the last sort of half an hour, so I think he had a knock and came on. The quality on that guy, man. I mean, Brentford going to finish 13th, 12th, something like that. And like, he is a brilliant centre forward. I was watching how he was playing. I was watching Vandenberg, how he dealt with Saka out wide, unbelievably. I was watching Coyote, obviously, in terms of the sort of the set pieces and what he can do there, but also just in terms of his quality and his ability to deal with contacts. And I'm going, mate, you are a brilliant footballer. It just, the levels that are happening in this league right now are incredible. And I think if you were selling this league to someone, this is a mid-table team up against undoubtedly the best team in the league, and that's how closely they ran it. It's incredible. It is truly incredible what we're seeing in this Premier League. Let's try and sort of talk through the game. First half, first 5 minutes or so, I felt Brentford was stepping onto us, being very brave. Again, another sort of advert for this league and how brave teams are being against us. And I was worried that there was going to be a sort of a period of lack of control, but actually we got control after about sort of 8 or 10 minutes. And then we were probing. And I think this is where we come back to what you were talking there a little bit about Madueke and White and et cetera, et cetera. Talk to me about that first half, because I felt once we got control, maybe the goal was a little bit early. Is probably my only thing, because I think we had a sort of a period of control. But Odegaard, Madueke, Ben White, I thought we looked really good for certainly periods of that first half.
Definitely. I think the team was coming to grip with Kevin Schade, who people that know my account know what I think about Kevin Schade. I think he is a bubbling superstar. He was testing our back line and really focusing on Mascara in that aerial battle, which I don't think Mascara was doing well to win, but really was their only outlet. And I thought that Arsenal did a much better job about finding their way into the final third. And us looking at one thing that I was really happy about, recognizing Madueke is in form and feeding him. Like, I find too many times our team isn't particular to the way that we attack. And we've definitely upped how even our attacks are down the left and right. But I think we can be a little bit more clinical and surgical, where if there's a 1v1 that we're exploiting, push it. Do more of it. And the team definitely fed Madueke quite a bit in those first 25, 30 minutes, rightly so. I don't know if it's time to do a Ben White segment. I want to do one at some point. But what he gives us in the final third is just completely different. And what it opened as far as some of the dynamic running on the outside, some of the spaces that we were creating, it meant that a lot of people, I thought, were moving quite well. In fact, I think there's sometimes you can criticize Arsenal and these mid-table teams for being quite static across the front line, but there was a lot of dynamic movement. And I don't think that's just because Ben White magically makes the team dynamic, but I do think, generally speaking, the right-hand side looked more dynamic. Yeah. But generally, I thought the whole front line looked quite dynamic. There was a lot of movement going on. I thought Calafiori on the other side had a brilliant match yet again, one of our unsung heroes of the season. And when you walk into a season in which we start to say, could fullbacks be our Mavericks? And everyone laughs. And yet I thought this game, my headline could have easily been the fullbacks are our Mavericks, in terms of how they were able to help us attack in different ways. Where this match definitely seemed one where we were looking towards the wide play and trying to get in behind the wing backs of Brentford and trying to test that distances between their third center back and the wing back, which I thought we did really, really well in moments. Probably the only frustration is, again, I think we as a team are learning without our top two center back pair to control some of the distances, which meant that at times we struggled in transition. And really, again, they went long to Schade and they were able to kind of work that back down and come at us in moments. But genuinely speaking, I thought it was pretty comfortable in the first half for the most part. And I thought we were good value for the goal when it happened as well, because I think the longer this game went on without a goal, I don't know how comfortable I would have been. I thought it was super important that when we were on top, we got a goal. Because I think Brentford are a tricky opponent to give the ambiguity to. And even at 1-0, I don't think everyone was comfortable, but still, it was one of those where it's like, we needed the goal. We got the goal. It was due course. It wasn't like we were bad value for it, but I was just really happy with that first half.
Yeah, we played really well. And I think, it's testament to Premier League football that while we're recording, Sunderland are 1-0 up against Liverpool, Leeds are 2-1 up against Chelsea. Villa have played a 4-3 against Brighton. It's just, this league is we talk all the time about, the context of the league, but like if we seriously deep how competitive and how good this league is, and how consistently we come out on top, one loss in 20 games, like we are a incredible football side. And one of the things, and kind of what you were saying there, or what I was hearing certainly, was how many sort of different narratives there are even within one game. Was it going to be the fullbacks? Was it going to be how Brentford dealt with pressure? Was it going to be how Sharda dealt with us on the counter attack? Was it going to be Brentford set pieces? Because they were so I think they did really well in terms of this getting first contact, looking at our front post, which I think has been a concern for us. Declan Rice at the front post consistently, but also Sharda drops off and produces an unbelievable save from Raya. Is that going to be the story of the game? Is the story of the game going to be, Arsenal, threatening and looking good, but not quite scoring? Then they do score. Oh, is it going to be too early? Just there's so many ways you can take a game in the Premier League right now. There are so many constant, 2 minutes go by and there's 3 more narratives that could be pulled out of it. It is just the most relentless and impressive league for so much quality. On that though, I think we should talk about Ben White, who I think, if we're going to pick out one sort of thread, I thought was great. And I think for me, maybe the thread that if I had to pick, I'd pick out the first half was I thought it was more dynamic. I thought we were more threatening in the final third in certain ways. I thought we were accessing certain spaces around the back of them with more consistency. Probably the only thing I felt we lacked was a chemistry, which is completely understandable. I can't remember Madueke, Odegaard and White playing together. No. So that makes complete sense. But I thought Ben White, considering I think we spoke about this on the main podcast, like, I don't know where he's at in Mikel's mind. I don't know where he's at in his mind in terms of what he thinks about himself in terms of during Timber to win player of the match, to come on, to get the assist for Mikel Merino, who was another whole narrative that could come out of this game. It's just so many. I think it's really impressive from him. The one thing I would say, and I think maybe worked in his favor, I felt as though there was Zubamendi and Mosquera and Nkapie, perhaps understandably as a sort of group, I felt we're a little bit conservative. The fact that we had a fullback and a pair of fullbacks who were complementing that with a more positivity, with more structure, with more rhythm in the final third, I think really worked for us. And that's probably why Madueke was looking good. I maintain Madueke is probably our best 1v1 pure. If you just isolate the 1v1 specialism skill, I think he's right up there. Needs to pull his shorts up. But other than that, I thought he was excellent as well. Thoughts on Madueke?
Can I combine it with White? But because Madueke has been, I think that pairing also is something that I don't know if I'd expect to have clicked in the way it did, if I'm being really honest with you, because Madueke, Madueke is a little bit more of that touchline winger that does like to go in behind, don't get me wrong. But I mean, he is somebody that likes to hold the width a bit, and Ben likes to arrive in the width. So it wasn't something that I was thinking on paper I'd see such green shoots of chemistry, but it was brilliant, to be honest with you. And there was really not too many times I felt that they were overcrowding their zones. I think that they did a really good job about recognizing where to be, and when to choose their moments, because both of these are players that I think like to run on the outside and attack space quite well. And so I don't think I was fearful, but I did question, look, we've got somebody that likes lane 5 as a winger and another fullback that likes lane 5. How are they going to overlap with each other? And they did it brilliantly. Look, I'm a Ben White stan. I think that he produced a performance that hopefully reminds people of the scope to what we can do. And this shouldn't be a case of a player war. And I don't even want to go down that route, but it does remind people about what he gives you as a tool. And I still maintain, as a fullback, unique amongst our 4 fullbacks. Like, every single one of our fullbacks offers something completely different. And I don't want us to do this player war thing anymore, but understand that they're unique in their own way and praise them in their own way. Because for as much as Timber has made so many improvements, I think, in the final third, that's still something that I think he can improve on. And vice versa with Ben White when we talk about certain defensive fundamentals. But it was just nice to see a player who has been a warrior for us look back to his physical best, or at least able to compete and do this for 90 minutes, because I didn't see a drop off in his physical presence. And that's more what I was looking for. I know the talent. I don't need to question the talent, but I'm sitting there saying, okay, strong start. But I was looking into the 90th minute. What does Ben White do as far as his recovery tackles that he was making in the second half? huge. And that to me was the thing that I cheered the most, not the cross. It was the fact that I see him sprinting in basically the 75th, 80th minute, capable of doing it on the stretch, not looking like he's in a red zone from injury. So that was probably one of the biggest, happiest times in the match for me. And then Madueke, mate, look, I have been on here on the Cannon podcast saying of all the deals, Madueke, I felt, was one in the summer that maybe we didn't care about value as much. Everything else seemed value oriented. And then I critiqued the deal. Madueke's been brilliant, like absolutely brilliant. From the start of the season till now, he legitimately picked up where he went off from injury. And there's a certain hunger to him and a humbleness to change his game as well that's been brilliant. I think a lot of the things that we saw in the scouted, we see with Madueke. When you look at the 1v1s, his ability to get into the box so quickly.
Posting back post.
Yeah.
He nearly scored.
Exactly. So a lot of the strengths, you pat yourself on the back because we were like, oh, we saw this in the scouted, like we're seeing it, great. But I personally didn't expect to see this investment out of possession that we have seen. And, you know, I think for him to just step up and be something that the team turns to, by the way, without Saka, it is special. You know, and I think that to have that reliability to change a game and be so considerate of it, there's a complete difference between Nani Madueke on the left than there is on the right. And I think there can be a lot more discussion about how we use both of these guys, including Saka, when we're not concerned about injuries, because there is potential, in my opinion, to see both Saka and Nani along the same side. Even there's potential to start to see what a partnership could look like there, or not have them at different wings. To have somebody so consistently able to beat their man, be a reference for the team, is something that I think you're going to want to highlight because he's done it consistently, mate. Like it's been months at this point, pre and post an injury, which is just brilliant.
So Saka left wing back,
not there.
Let's come to the second half because it did become just a bit of a bizarre game, and you're sort of watching phase after phase of like Brentford have a set piece and we look stressed, and then we control the game for about 3 minutes, and then there's a stoppage, and then like Declan Rice looks knackered, and then he comes up with a massive carry, and then like Marino misses a sitter, and then Kelleher parries about 3 goals in a row that we should probably score. Like it's just such a mad game. Again, even while we're speaking, George, Leeds have just scored another against Chelsea. This league is absolutely unforgiving, and I don't want to underplay. You know, we can talk a little bit about the second half, but really, what interests me about this, I don't want to underplay this. Fulham last night nearly coming back from, was it 4-1 or 4-0 maybe? I can't remember the result now. This is an absolute super league. It is a super league, and I'm looking at Brentford, and maybe we should talk about Brentford in the second half because I think they had a better second half than us. I'm looking at so many of their players. I mentioned earlier KOD. I mentioned earlier Vandenberg as well. But I thought, had a good night. I think Ethan Pennock basically hasn't played this season. Came in, did really well. Obviously, the players off the bench came in. Lewis Potter looked pretty good. Damsgaard looked like he was controlling things. Henderson is still at it. And I also mentioned Igor Thiago. Their profiling of players for their level of investment that they can put in is amazing. And Kevin Shard is another trait. Yarmouk is another trait. You can look around the whole team. Talk to me about Brentford, because like we're gonna, there will be certain Arsenal fans listening to this. Oh, well, it's Brentford, we should have won. Mate, A, look around the league, and B, look at this group of players, because this group of Brentford players are really, really good.
What was the score last year? Did we not hold to a draw at the Emirates with Brentford? I think it's very arrogant to sit there and say, when you've watched your own team not win a title because they've lost to teams like this. You know, you look at your Fulhams, your West Hams, we've talked about it so much. The physical mid-block teams was something that personally I needed to see before I was really confident in saying Arsenal will win the league. And I mean, Brentford are another example of that, mate. Like, they totally have the capability to sit there and cause issues, but also cause issues for our team. And, you know, the fact that we haven't is all of the praise that you need. But also, let's not forget that the reason we've lost leagues in the last 2-3 years is because we've not only been able to not deal with it on the night sometimes, but also have clustered of results that this pattern repeats itself. So I don't take for granted the fact that Arsenal are steamrolling these types of teams. I praise it, but I don't take it for granted. And I think you're being an unfair Arsenal fan if you look down on the idea that we must beat these teams consistently, because Arsenal have always had a brilliant record against the top six. We've lost leagues because of our record outside the top six. So from my perspective, whilst, the Chelsea result could be, the one that you want to brag about with fans, I'm concerned about Brentford at home following a week of incredible intensity. And then, mate, we got to go to Villa Park on the weekend. Like this league is unrelenting. And I don't think Villa Park is going to be easy, like to sit there and expend that. And that's why I don't look down on the squad for not only being disjointed, but making the result look easier than we needed to do. So that's what I think is the best thing about this squad, the best thing about this night, because I'm confident that we can sit there with rotation and changes and attack Villa with fresh legs, which is not something we could have done in years past.
Yeah, for sure. Here's the numbers. 2-0. 1.7 expected goals to 0.4, 15 shots to 6 from Brentford, 7 shots on target to their 1. Really impressive post-shot XG of 0.1 from Brentford's perspective. 14 open play shots to 2, 62.4% possession to 37.6. Passes completed, far ahead of them. Final third entries, double. Expected threat created 2.8 to 0.3, 42 deep touches to 15, zone 14 touches 10 to 4. I think, George, as well, how many times do we sit here on Instant Reactions last season speaking about basically numbers like this, but at a 1-1 or a 0-0 or a 1-0 to them? And I think that's the big difference this season is we are getting things over the line. I think I do put it down to the squad and how we built the squad and how we constructed this squad. There's the running XG over the course of the game. That chart, I suspect, might be the Marino one. Maybe that one was probably the Saka one that he didn't score, and then he does score that one. Just variance. There we are from the edge of the box there. Again, sort of heavily sort of put on the right-hand side. Madueke is probably a big part of that. And there is our beautiful, gorgeous valleys of field tilt, 72.6 to Brentford's 27.4. Talk to me about the sort of the usage of the squad this evening, because we had Timber coming on obviously at halftime from Mosquera. I think we discussed a little bit earlier about why that might be. I think it felt like a precautionary. Declan Rice coming off Victor Gyökeres. I actually had to leave the room to open the door for someone. And I missed it, but I think it was a precautionary. You might have to tell me about that one.
It was.
Yeah, and it's one of those, I could, but I won't. Martinelli coming off on the hour and Saka coming on the hour with Madueke going off felt precautionary to me. We had Jesus on the bench, Lewis Kelly on the bench, obviously Waneri and Norgard and so on. I think we are, by all accounts, being a little bit more careful this season, which I think is really important and does contribute to results like this. It does mean that players like Timber are a little bit fresher to come onto this. It does mean players like Victor Gyökeres can come on and stretch things in the last sort of 5-10 minutes because he's not been rushed back for the game before and picked up another little knock. It does mean we can use Saka in the way we have and maybe get the pressure sort of lifted in that way. I think for me, George, I hate the sort of the conversations about injuries and stuff like that, and we could go down the path of another injury to Mosquera and Rice or whatever. I feel personally right now that it's more related to not wanting to take risks, and that's why partly we had the starters that we did in White and Madueke, but also why we saw the substitutions that we did.
Yeah, not to get like super nerdy, and so I'm going to keep the sports medicine talk very tight. I believe that there was a physio that went on to Sky Sports recently on the overlap that talked a little bit about load in one of their segments. And so just really quickly, I mean, I don't have to tell you, high intensity could result in injuries. You look at sprints, you look at average length of sprints, all of this stuff is up. All of our matches are up crazy amounts. So from, there's so much data out there to prove that have drawn like correlational analysis to soft tissue injuries and the amount of sprints, the length of games, yada, yada. One thing that I do want to talk about, though, is when you have a squad, and when I mentioned earlier in the pod, Saliba plays this game last year, I kind of mean it with that point in mind. Does everybody think back to January when we talk about the stress the forward situation had, putting that load on players and spiking their intensity outside a norm? When you look at a sports medicine's side of things, you look at load as far as spikes of intensity. Every time you have an abnormal spike of intensity, you have a risk of injury, not a guarantee, but a risk of injury. So when you talk about a player, for example, that is, playing in the orange, let's call it, and you get to rest them, that's brilliant. You can bring them back down from an orange to a green, can't you? However, if you talk about a Mascara, for example, who has gone from playing every single minute, okay, of last season, having a baseline intensity of here, and then coming in and out, and then getting a small injury, it's not because Arsenal's training methods are poor. It could simply be that, well, he's got spiked of intensities at different points. And this is just the nuance that, I don't expect fans to understand. They may not have the background, but it's just so much more complicated fundamentally than I think we give it credit for. I have no doubt that an elite sports team at this level is having weekly meetings about best practices, points of improvements, and things like that, just like they have film. You don't think the medical department are also doing the exact same thing and yada, yada. And that's not to say that you now then say whatever the club does is perfect. I also don't want to come across that way. It's just, I think that the power of the squad this year is basically allowing us to have more leniency and more willingness to take players off early for things that they might question. There is a bit of subjectivity to sports medicine, and a lot of it's going to be on pain and what they feel in the moment. You don't have MRI scans on there to understand. I mean, you can do little bits of tests to make sure that it's not a serious injury, but even then, you don't have a scan that's going to guarantee no injury. And so I think that players, and especially our squad, Mikel's more willing to say, don't take a chance, out, next one in. And it's not because they're injured, so to speak. It's more that we don't want to risk further injury, therefore come off. It could be more precautionary. And I do think you get that with a better squad, and managers more willing to do those things with a better squad. So all in all, I'm happy that we're in this position. And I think that's the biggest takeaway I take from it.
Yeah, I think that's well explained. And I think that feels to me like the sort of the noise around Arsenal's injuries and the sort of precautions and players like Trossard not being available, etc. It's hard to separate that out from that deeper squad, because you just don't know. Maybe Trossard is back. If he's back next game, maybe he would be back on the bench this evening, and we're having a different conversation about, Trossard was out for that game. Well, he kind of was and he kind of wasn't. Like he could have been there had we not signed a Madueke or Jesus wasn't back or whatever. So I also just think it's the era of football that we're in, as I mentioned many times on the podcast, and it's affecting everyone. It really is. I think if you look around it, you can see that.
And sorry, really quickly, is not fan conspiracy on injury like one of the base pillars for being a fan that has basically been there for years? It will not change.
It has to be.
So yeah, it will always be there.
And it's kind of the easiest access point to like, woe is us, right? Which I think like some people love football because it gives them the space to kind of feel woe is me, which is fine. Like it's not a bad way of, if there's no other place in your life you can feel it, then of course it's going to come out through your football team. But I do think it's like an easy access point of like, of course we're the ones who get injured, mate. Look around, it's not just us. 13 matches in 6 weeks. This schedule is hell. As we've sort of covered, I think the rotations this evening were good. And ultimately we got the result, and we'd be talking about it if we didn't. I love Odegaard, but he seems so reluctant to play it forward. White made so many runs that weren't taken advantage of. It's so frustrating to see, says my twin Oliver Monk. I think I will agree with the general conservatism of the midfield this evening. I wonder why, because I felt it across the midfield. I felt it from Odegaard, I felt it from Zubimendi. I've at times felt it from Rice, but because he was kind of in that more left-hand sided role this evening, he was dropping out a little bit more. He had a bit more space to carry into. I think we were looking at those. I think we're looking at that block in the middle, which I think they were trying to do a bit of a Palace thing of sort of really compact to the middle of that five. That we approached it that way, where sort of our midfielders were a little bit more conservative, and actually we spent more time going, right, White and Calafiori, you really go. That's how I see it. I think Odegaard, again, similarly, maybe there's some moments because of his fitness and where he's been recently that maybe I go, yeah, were you exactly at the races there? To me, though, that felt more Brentford related, I would say.
Yeah, like I don't want to hide. I think Odegaard struggles with this, but it could be a little bit of confirmation bias, like looking for it. I do think in transitions, Odegaard can have a tendency to hold on to the ball longer than he should. That's one of the differences. I think people are going to
Surely
debate between him and Eze. But I think in this match, I didn't see anything crazy, bar a couple moments, and I do think match intensity is a thing. He's just come back. So his trust and his ability to play that pass and pace is going to be different for at least a couple more matches. And then he's back in flow. And when he is, you're going to be a little bit more intent. But I do think what's fair, though, I've asked for it against Chelsea. I do think that we can demand a bit more bravery from these deep passes. The one I'll call the Miles Lewis-Skelly pass. I do think it's fair that we don't play that pass enough broadly, not just Odegaard, but as a team. So I'd love to test it more. And I do think that we could probably ask ourselves to play it more. But I do also acknowledge that pass is also a coach's nightmare because it is one of those things, unless you play it into space and you've got something to run onto, it's still a 50-50. A lot of times coaches would prefer to retain in those situations, but I do sympathize because I do believe we could play those passes more than we do.
Yeah, and I think Mikel said this a couple of months ago, and I think it's a really good way of putting it. There is an emotional aspect to decision making. It's not pure technical and tactical. And I think Raya this evening at home against this type of side, he was more willing to play those parts. There was a pass into midfield. I think that kind of broke the game open a little bit, actually, in sort of about the 8th minute before that sort of period and stretch of our domination. And I think that was really the moment for me where I went, oh, this is flipped. I think Raya has been guilty at times of just going long. And I get it, especially when you're passing to like a Marino in the midfield. But if Odegaard's in there, I think you need to be a little bit braver and just go, right, I'm just going to play that ball into his path. Aditya says, share your Spotify Wrapped, lads. How's your Spotify Wrapped, George?
I don't know how to access.
Do you know what Spotify is?
I have Spotify. I have no clue what he's talking about.
My Spotify Wrapped, it's like the thing at the end of the year when you it shows you who you've listened to. I got this, which was, I don't know if you can see that, which is my listening age is 76.
I might get a really young one if I did that because I share an account with my fiance who listens to all the pop music that I have no clue about. So
all the pop music.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 1975 have been knocked off their perch because similarly I share mine with my partner. So she's been playing it at work. I really like the way Rice and Martinelli swapped in possessions. It's a new thing. Yeah, we haven't spoken about this yet. I thought Martinelli had a really encouraging evening. Again, similarly with the Zubimendi and Odegaard and Rice maybe being a touch more conservative this evening. I think the moments when Martinelli found it centrally, he was willing to turn and go and play things, and I was excited by his performance. I thought he took the game to them. It's difficult because I remember having this discussion with you when he was sort of going through that really bad patch like about a year ago. It's that chicken and egg thing of he only gets 2 big chances a game, if that, maximum. Then when he skies it, you sort of go, oh, how many more chances do I want to give you centrally? But equally, we have seen him centrally performing, and when he does finish, I think I still can maintain he is one of the best finishers in the squad. But it's it takes him. I feel like the thing with Martinelli, it's almost like it takes him 2 or 3 sighters before he scores sometimes, and I felt that again this evening. I like what he did this evening, so I don't want to detract anything from him, but I'm curious what your take is.
I thought he was good. I don't know if I felt like it was an amazing performance. I thought it was good. I think he's just been, I'd call it bright. I don't know about decisive. I don't know about clinical. I just thought he was bright. And there was moments that I felt like he was forcing to come inside a little bit too obvious. Like there's times that we recycle and his ball inside was slow, pedantic. And I just said, okay, play the pass a bit. But then I loved the curved runs when he did play him in behind, and he did have a chance to recycle. He followed his pass, which is not something that I think he was doing consistently enough last season. So that he would get isolated, recycle, and then that was it. but there was moments that I think he felt more confident in terms of following his pass, making some really nice curved runs as well. And the movement is just a little bit better. He's more on the move. So I think he at least is doing more to get himself involved than what he was doing last year. I think that's fair. But equally, I don't know if I wouldn't use this as a landmark Martinelli performance, but I would say he was bright. And he's continuing a bright season, I would say, in moments. I'm still looking for maybe a performance that's a 1 to 90, but he's absolutely been bright, I think, in a lot of cameos.
Yeah, and I'm still not convinced it is Martinelli, but the pace on the counter is so big for us, and I can see Brentford the way their rest defense is when they're in the final third. You can see they're worried about it. We do need 100%. That wherever it is. Like it doesn't have to come from Martinelli necessarily, but without that in the squad, without that skill, if you lose Martinelli, you have to replace him. Like I think I'm okay. 100%. I think I'm like okay with moving on from him, probably broadly, if you get the right player in, but it has to be a next level up. And in the meantime, I think I'm open to seeing what he does. But yeah, I agree. This season wasn't necessarily like a landmark moment. Noah says, how I missed Ben. Warmed Omari as Rice understudy. Warmed Omari.
I'm not clicking with that either. I'm drawing a blank.
If Declan Rice is out, and I'm not tempting fate, what do you do?
For Villa, Miles.
Okay.
Midfield.
Okay, I was going to say, what would you do? That's a different question. What will Mikel do?
Genuinely, I think there's an opportunity for, like, not just what I would do. I think genuinely, because you look at that. Because if you drop Marino back inside and you play Gyökeres, I think that the physicality difference is completely different. But look, maybe Mikel might do it, but I think he's been more willing to play those partnerships and complementary partnerships than before. So I've really changed my opinion. I had that idea about the Mascara, Hincapié in certain partnerships, and then a different partnership in another. And I feel like he's shown an ability to be that flexible. He's been more rotative, so I think there's an option. Look, he could do the Marino thing and the Gyökeres depending on fitness. I will maintain, I think Miles is the best choice combined with Zubimendi if you want to supply some of the running within there. Because I think Mikel Marino's now on 9 goals and assists this season, something like that.
29 GA in 2025.
In 2025, and I think this season something like 9 of the goals and assists have come this season. But I think that's in a very specific role. And I think that him starting in midfield is not the same as him starting up front and coming deep to collect versus already being deep and asked to turn around and collect. Those are very different tasks. So, yeah.
If we win the Premier League, George,
God.
You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I do.
If we win the Premier League and Spain win the World Cup, why isn't he and if he gets, I don't know, 38 GA from the summer of 2020. Well, we probably wouldn't get that. Let's say he gets like 25 GA from the summer of last season to the summer of next season. Why is he not the Ballon d'Or winner? Explain to me. Explain why. 12 marks. Point, evidence, explanation.
Oh, God. I'm crying. I can't.
Yeah. I mean, it would be hilarious, to be clear, but why not?
Oh, God. This screams of Jorginho. I think it'll be, yeah. I want to make a joke with you.
I want Nedved.
Yeah. I want to give you a funny answer, but yeah, no, it would be hilarious. And I mean, you can't overlook it too. I think we laugh, but I also don't think it's a given that he was able to do it. And can you correct me if I'm wrong? I swear Mikel spoke about it again as far as Marino, where there was a quote where he was like, look, I knew that he had qualities and the man I really respected to come in. But, the way that we found him in the striker position has been something that's been brilliant. And he's one of the most intelligent players in the squad. It's a credit to him. But, it's one of those things where I just think Mikel Marino will go down as my biggest case study for scouting and trying to understand players, because this man, he confuses and boggles me. we found a penalty box striker that was a number 8 in La Liga. And we'll do none of the number 8 things, but we'll do all of the things that you'd want some of your best penalty box strikers to do.
Bizarre footballer. Oliver Monk says, going to see Radiohead tomorrow. I'm buzzing. Enjoy, Oliver, my friend.
I know that reference. I know that band. They're great.
George knows Radiohead. And I know Coldplay, guys. Right, this is where it leaves the Premier League as Paddy Chin says, just say happy Christmas to all. Gift wrap today featuring Chelsea. It leaves Arsenal still at the top of the Christmas tree. 5 points ahead of Manchester City with 10-1, 3 drawn and 1 loss, as we said earlier. 21 games so far this season in all competitions, 1 loss.
Can I ask you a question? How many points do you have to be before you feel as though that they're no longer a title challenger? And I will just come out and say Chelsea. I saw some of the takes I saw after the weekend. I understand it was unexpected as a draw for some people, but some of the takes I saw, if they hit 11 points or 12, like what's your barometer for no, they're no longer in it?
As in points behind?
Yes. Yeah.
I do think Chelsea are in it. Like, I'll be serious. Like, what I saw at the weekend...
They still are, I think, for sure.
I think they're in it. My question is sustainability. I think we said on the last Instant Reaction, they remind me of 22-23 us. So they're not going to go the whole way, but I do wonder if they'll put some pretty good sort of runs and streaks together. Yeah, probably. It depends where we are. At this point in the season, I think you can be 12 points back and you can probably still give us a run. By probably February, I think once you're 10 points behind, it's very tough. But, George, we are 5 points clear at the top of the league. We go away to Villa. If we can manage that, if we can even get a draw, if we can even, which probably for the sake of this team, well, depending on Declan Rice's fitness, but I think we can go there and win absolutely with the quality. We are just...
good at football.
We're good at football. We are good at football, and like I do want to highlight it. And I don't want to just keep going back to this point, but it's look at the rest of the results this evening.
Yeah,
look at it. Like Villa run, I think came from 2 goals down to beat Brighton 4-3. Palace get a win at Burnley. Leeds beat Chelsea 3-1. Sunderland go away to Anfield. Like think of the narratives around Anfield over the last 5, 10, 15, 20, however many years, and look what's happening now. Like it really, things are so open. And I think the thing that I really credit this Arsenal team with, and actually Keith Andrews said before the game, is how much care and attention we show to every single phase of play. And you really feel that. It may feel stodgy at times. It may feel almost too careful at times. But I think the brand of football we're playing, how detailed we are, how we do slow it down sometimes, how we are a little bit more cautious sometimes, hasn't always helped us. But in this version of the Premier League, with this depth of squad, I think we are bang suited to it. And we can see that by where we are in the table.
Yeah, I just see how calm this team is and the squad is, and I just feel calm as well. There's a lot to be said about this league, and I'm very interested to see come May if what I think might happen, in which I think we do really well to do the big thing. I'm wonder what people are going to say about the league, because it is incredibly strong. I mean, have a look at the table, to be honest with you. Like, ignore us, but if you look at 28 to 21, that's the difference between second and 10th at this point, right? You're talking about 7 points. Like ignore us. We are an anomaly. Everybody else is within 7 points of each other. Within 2 game weeks, you could be looking at a very different table for so many teams, for nearly half the league. So it's brilliant to see.
It really, I mean, just to play that game briefly, the contrasting narratives between, let's say, United and Chelsea. United are 3 points off them. The contrasting narratives between City and Liverpool are 6 points off them.
Yeah,
like it's just an incredible league. It really is.
And it's nice not to be in that conversation.
Yeah, we're
on
our own little world. in our own little world. I've seen a few of you talking about this scouted this evening for is it the Quintero brothers? I still need to watch them before our scouted on Friday. The Quintero brothers. We are going to do a scouted on Friday, which should be out over the weekend. So if you want to sign up for that and watch us wax lyrical about some Independiente del Valle, is that how you say the name?
I don't think you should ask me how to pronounce it.
I was going to say it's probably not the right person to ask. Some U18 ODV football. You can check that out on the Patreon, on the YouTube memberships side. George, we'll finish there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, good sir.
Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Another win for Arsenal in this incredible season, and keep the good times rolling. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks for keeping it Arsenal.
Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. This was one kind of queue the ladies thoroughly enjoyed.
Electrifying. Electrifying. Inspiration.